Sorrentino, one of my personal favorites. Let me show you how to make it. Let's cook. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Chef Threads. Thank you for joining as always. And I always appreciate everybody subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, commenting. It means a lot to our cooking community. So, as you heard, we are making Gnocchi Sorrentino. This is one of my favorites. One of the restaurants that I worked at years ago. This was one of the dishes on the menu, and I used to love making this dish. So, and then when I make my own sauce, and I like to add my own sauce to this recipe, and it really makes this dish 5 times better. So let's get into it. I like to make, when I make homemade gnocchi, I like to use potato. I'm not a fan of the ricotta gnocchi, but to each their own. I mean, it's not bad. I prefer potato. And this is how I learned how to make it years and years and years ago from my grandfather and then my dad. So I like to use, you can use Yukon potatoes, you can use Idaho potatoes. For this particular one, I use an Idaho potato. And really, this recipe here, I only used 2 potatoes, and it made quite a bit of gnocchi. So just keep that in mind. And a little tip here for the potatoes is, cut them up into equal size, as best as you can, equal size pieces, and put them into a pot of cold water. When you put it in a pot of cold water and you put it on the stove and you go to turn it on, by the time that water begins to boil, those potatoes are done. But now with gnocchi, I like to carry the potatoes over just a hair longer, so that way they become, kind of, I don't want to say mush, because they're like right on that borderline between soft and mush, because we have to be able to, make a dough out of it. So while that's cooking, let's chop up some vegetables here for our sauce, and really it's just like a few ingredients, which is just I like to use fresh garlic, and then some cherry tomatoes. Actually, these tomatoes that I've been getting lately, I don't know if they're local to every supermarket, but they are here where I live, and they're called Flavor Bombs. And I'm telling you what, guys, they are outstanding. They have such a good flavor to them, hence the name Flavor Bomb. So that's what I use. So also, we're going to use some fresh basil. I love basil. Basil is one of my favorite ingredients in fresh pasta and any type of sauce or whatever. And this is if you're not familiar, this is called a chiffon cut. And basically what you see me doing is I'm trying to get some of the big leaves off of the basil, and then you layer them down. Like you lay one down, then one on top of it, another one, and just repeating that process. And then you kind of fold it and roll it, and then you can easily chop through it, and you can see they come out with these perfect little strips of basil. So that is a chiffon cut, if anybody does not know. And then also we are going to go with some fresh mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella will be tossed on top and will be baked into our sauce. So that's awesome. I mean, I love fresh mozzarella. If you don't know how to make it homemade, which I didn't have time to make it homemade, so I just went and got to the store and bought it. That's absolutely, you can do that as well. But so let's begin making our dough. Our potatoes are now cooked, and you can see they're kind of like how I was mentioning. They're just carried over a hair from being over soft, or like mush. And just add an egg. This is how I do it. There's many other ways to make potato gnocchi, but this is how I do it. And it's just potato, 1 egg, salt, pepper, and then I typically like to use Parmesan cheese, that you would buy off the shelf or at the store. And again, I have some Pecorino cheese left over still, and I was like, well, let me use that. It's fresh, and it's just, I tell you what, it was really good. So I'll be doing that going forward now. It's just to use some fresh cheese. So I recommend doing that as well. So let's just speed up the process here. And You could use a mixer for this. I'm old school. I like to feel everything. And to me, putting this into a bowl and using a fork, I can feel the clumps of potatoes breaking up, and I want to make sure every single clump is broken up. You don't want to get a clump in your dough. So now, once you kind of see the consistency of look like mashed potatoes, let's start adding in our flour. Now, I can't give you the exact amount of flour that I use for this recipe because every time I do it, it can be different. It just depends on how the texture of the dough feels. And, if it's too soft, I gotta have more flour. If it's beginning to firm up quickly, then you use less flour. So it's kind of a give and take situation. So I apologize, I can't give you the correct amount of flour. It's all by feel. But in this case, this batch here, the first it was 3 big tablespoons of flour that's going into my dough. And again, like I said, you can use a mixer for this. It's a lot easier, but I'm old school. And you can begin to see that potato already starting to clump up. Like it's starting to get firm now. It almost do a workable ball. So with that being said, once you start seeing that, I like to lay out a nice layer of flour, put our dough ball onto the flour, and then just start working it. Just flatten it out. I like to flatten it out, get a little more flour in there, and then just start kneading the dough, fold, knead, just repeat that process over and over and over again until you start seeing that dough starting to firm up. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, you can feel the consistency of the dough getting firmer to where it's not soft and mushy and breaking apart. And then you'll feel it. So I'm going to play this out. I don't want to fast forward any of this because I want to show you my process and how long it actually physically takes to, do this process. You can fast forward if you like, but I want to keep this footage raw, so you can see exactly what I do and how long it takes me to do it. So go ahead and watch that. you can see me kind of feeling it and touching it. And now I'm starting to feel that it's getting to be the firmness that I'm looking for. So now that it's at that consistency, I like to put it in the fridge for about 10 minutes just to get it a little bit even more firm, so it's workable. So here, after you pull it back out of the fridge, cut it up into some workable pieces, because what we're going to do is I want to roll these out. You're gonna roll them out, and then we're gonna cut them into our gnocchi. So I'm gonna show you two different angles here. You can see me working it out here, and then almost like Play-Doh. We all used to play with Play-Doh when we were kids. So it's basically kind of like the same thing. That's what my grandfather used to tell me. And spread your fingers out, and work it out until it's all the same thickness all the way across, and then just cut it up. You can do it to where you cut these up and then you make the mark in it with the fork and blah 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 blah. But like this is the same way that my family has done it for years, and it's just it's just passed down. So I still continue to do it. Here's another angle, and you can see that they don't all have to be perfect, but I like to make them all pretty close to the same size. So after you get everything cut up, I like to put them on a sheet pan, and I'll fast forward through all this. Put them on a sheet pan, sprinkle a little bit of flour on it, and then throw it in the freezer. I mean, you don't have to get them frozen, but at least it gets them firm enough when we go to pick them up and dump them in the water. They're not going to be like mushing around. So to start our actual sauce for this dish is obviously our fresh garlic, a little bit of olive oil, and then shortly after I put the garlic in, I like to throw the tomatoes in because I want them to get blistered in that oil without the garlic burning. Go ahead and toss in your tomatoes, roll them around a little bit, add a little bit of salt and pepper. I've actually been using this Himalayan pink salt lately, if you guys haven't noticed, and I kind of like it, so just some food for thought. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. My sauce there, Chef Thread's Sunday Tradition. We were actually selling these jars of sauce for a while now. I'll get back to it again. I will get back to it. So if you want my sauce recipe, it is on our Instagram page, chef_threads. So I would advise you to watch that video if you'd like to see my sauce recipe. It's not my full recipe because obviously I'm Italian and I can't give out my full recipe, but it's pretty close. So you see me adding in fresh basil, and that's really it on the sauce. It's very basic, very simple, very good. I also want to show you the raw, uncut footage of me cooking the pasta. Now, you saw me just dump it in there. You give it a quick stir, and then watch these gnocchi start to float. So when they start floating, it doesn't take long, guys. When they start floating, give it about another minute or two, and then they're done. So right here, you can start seeing them float. Little Italian pillows of love, that's what we call them. I mean, look at that. That was not even 30 seconds, and they're floating. So I like to let them sit and cook for another minute or so. Drain them, add them to our sauce. Give it a quick flip or stir it around with a spoon, whatever you'd like. And then we're going to go in and add in our fresh mozz. And there's other methods too. You could pick it apart off the ball. To me, I find this easier just to chop it up into cubes or whatever you'd like. And then just kind of place them sporadic. Don't have them all clumped up in one area. Try to place them out sporadically so that way you get that cheese pockets everywhere. And here, I actually put the oven on broil because I want that because the sauce is already hot. We don't need to bake it. We just need it to melt, the cheese to melt, and get a little color on the top. And that's it. I mean, and then that's it, guys. Just plate it up. This dish is phenomenal, guys. I love this dish. You could use any type of other sauce you wanted to. I just use my sauce because I love my sauce. And that's it, guys. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like. There is nothing better than homemade gnocchi in my sauce. Don't forget the threads, baby. The champagne of clothing.